What do we learn about the offering of David for the temple? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible.
Worth the glory of his cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 1 to 9. Before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Chronicles chapter 29, beginning at verse 1. Furthermore, King David said to all the assembly, "My son Solomon, whom alone God has chosen, is young and inexperienced, and the work is great, because the temple is not for man, but for the Lord God. Now for the house of my God I have prepared with all my might, gold for things to be made of gold, silver for things of silver, bronze for things of bronze, iron for things of iron, wood for things of wood, onyx stones to be set, glistening stones of various colors, all kinds of precious stones, and marble slabs in abundance. Moreover, because I have set my affection on the house of my God, I have given to the house of my God over and above all that I have prepared for the holy house, my own special treasure of gold and silver, 3,000 talents of gold, of the gold of Ophir, and 7,000 talents of refined silver, to overlay the walls of the houses, the gold for things of gold and the silver for things of silver, and for all kinds of work to be done by the hands of the craftsmen. Who then is willing to consecrate to himself this day to the Lord?" Then the leaders of the house of the Lord, then the leaders of the fathers' houses, leaders of the tribes of Israel, the captains of thousands and of hundreds, with the officers over the king's work, offered willingly. They gave for the work of the house of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 darics of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. And whoever had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the house of the Lord, into the hand of Jehiel the Gershonite. Then the people rejoiced, for they had offered willingly, because with a loyal heart they had offered willingly to the Lord. And King David also rejoiced greatly. We have now come to the final chapter of our study of 1 Chronicles. David is addressing the people in what would be the final address recorded in this book before his death. In it, he proclaims to the people that God had chosen Solomon to be the next king, bypassing David's oldest surviving son, Adonijah. In fact, the chronicler isn't going to even mention Adonijah's attempted coup or his death, so the only record we have of that is from 1 Kings. David also tells them that it is Solomon who would build the temple of Jehovah in Jerusalem, and that it is there that they were to worship. This temple would be a grand structure, not only bigger in size compared to the tabernacle, but in value, as evidenced by the sheer amount of gold, silver, and bronze that it would contain. Recognizing that the temple had this much gold, silver, and bronze will help explain how on numerous occasions Israel was able to pay tribute to other nations that would come in and punish them for their sins. But even though Solomon would ultimately build the temple, it was David who set forth the plans and made all the preparations. The reason given by David is not that he has some sort of ego, thinking only he could design the temple. It's not that he was going against God's instructions, for we know from the last lesson that God inspired David as to the design of the temple. It's that Solomon is young and inexperienced, and this was the temple for the Lord, not a temple for man. Thus, experience and wisdom were required in its construction. How old Solomon is here, we don't know, for we don't get his age either when he begins to reign, nor when he dies, though we know he reigns for 40 years. To be described of as young and inexperienced, we can likely deduce that he is in his early 20s here, as such an age will fit the description given by David. Among David's many preparations was he had collected and dedicated all the gold, silver, bronze, and iron needed for the temple, as was described back in chapter 22. But even beyond that, David, because he had respect for God and wanted God's house to be built and be magnificent, went above and beyond what was required and dedicated his own special treasure of gold and silver. 3,000 talents of gold and 7,000 talents of refined silver, anything that was needed to be done would have the proper amount of material and then some. A talent of gold is about 34 kilograms or 75 pounds. And so what we have here is 102,000 kilograms or about 225,000 pounds of gold. In 2024 prices, that would be about 10.6 billion Canadian or 7.7 billion American worth of gold. For the silver, David would have had 238,000 kilograms or 525,000 pounds of silver, and at 2024 prices would be amounting to about 295 million Canadian or 214 million American. That is sure a large offering to God, but David had subdued the nations round about him and received tribute from them, so these types of numbers are not out of the realm of possibility. But David wasn't satisfied with his offering alone, for the temple was Israel's temple to Jehovah. So he asked the people if they would consecrate some of their money to the construction of the temple of the Lord. And they did so willingly, giving 5,000 talents and 10,000 darics of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. Now we've dealt with the talent before, but what is a daric? A daric was a gold coin used in the Persian Empire and weighed about 8.4 grams. It wouldn't have existed in David's day, and so what the chronicler is doing is converting a unit of measure that was used in David's day, but not in Ezra's, into a unit of measure that Israel of the time would understand. It's much like what we're doing converting talents to kilograms and pounds. In total, Israel consecrated about $530 million Canadian or $385 million American of gold, $420 million or Canadian or 305 million US of silver, 1 million Canadian or 740,000 US copper, and 7.5 million or $5.7 million of iron US. From these amounts, then, the temple would have more than enough material to build what was needed to be built, with material left over for anything that needed to be built. That the children of Israel gave a free will offering for the construction of the temple, I'm reminded of what happened during the days of Moses, where in Exodus 35:29 we read, "The children of Israel brought a free will offering to the Lord, all the men and women whose hearts were willing to bring material for all kinds of work which the Lord, by the hand of Moses, had commanded to be done." A free will offering shows your devotion to the Lord and willingness to participate in the work of the Lord that needed to be done. This offering wasn't forced by David, but it was requested. Today, Christians are told to give of their means as they have been prospered in order for the work of the local church to continue. Like with Israel, this isn't a forced offering, but it does show our willingness to be part of the work of the church and our devotion to the cause of Christ in helping the gospel be spread. So, for Christians, follow the example of the Israelites here and give willingly and with gladness of heart to the local work where you are, so that the church may accomplish the work given to it. And so, all of the material that the temple needed to be built, including the precious stones, were now ready. It would be a few more years until they were put to use, but they were ready. We'll see the construction of the temple, the Lord willing, in our study of 2 Chronicles. In our next lesson, we'll see David's praise to God, his final words recorded for us in 1 Chronicles. So we invite you back for that. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verses 10 to 20, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.